Welcome to Fintech Brews and News, brought to you by Central Payments and False Fintech. I'm Nikkee Rhody.
And I'm Trent Sorbe.
Founders, co-founders, payments professionals, and, well, just people who love brews. This is a place to get a behind-the-scenes look at unique partnerships and ways to bridge the financial gap between banking, startups, and the entire fintech industry. Whether it's a beer or coffee or something else, there's certain to be a brew in every episode. After all, how do we function in this space without it? Each episode, you're sure to take away some good stuff going on in the financial technology space. So without further ado, let's grab a brew.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of Fintech Brews and News. I'm Trent Sorbe.
And I'm Nikkee Rhody.
We're really excited to have you back with us today. This is a very special episode for us. Today we're going to spend time talking to the 5 fantastic companies that make up Cohort 4 of False Fintech. I think it's a great time, Nikkee, to kind of share with the group what you're seeing in this group and compare it against maybe what you've seen in past cohorts.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. It's so cool what has happened. Actually, I reflected the other day that Cohort 4, this makes our full second year of doing False Fintech, and I just can't believe the time has flown by so quickly. So as we were receiving applications for this cohort, what we started to recognize is people are just a bit farther along. We've always promoted False Fintech to be what we would call at or near minimum viable product. But I would say now these guys are certainly at minimum viable product, if not past that. Some are in other markets already. We have an international reach that's bigger than ever. So this cohort, there's a company that's live in India, expanding to the United States. There's a company here from Moscow, and that's been really cool to experience kind of who they are and what they plan to do here in the United States. And then, of course, the local folks, more reach than we've ever had before. So it's been really fantastic.
One of the things I've noticed in my short time with the group, I've had a couple of them tell me that in some ways, the pandemic actually helped them because they were able to stay really focused on what they were doing when the world was effectively shut down for what felt like forever, but let's just say a year. It allowed these startups to really hone in, focus, build product, build concept, during a time when, frankly, there wasn't much opportunity to be distracted.
Yeah, that's right. And as I think also about prior cohorts, big, huge shout out to the Central Payments team for taking the False Fintech cohorts and really adapting some of our processes around them. We have 3 companies that are alumni of False Fintech that are now in market or right on the brink of in market, and an additional 6 that are on deck for implementation, which is really fantastic. Statistically, it's really been remarkable to watch them unfold and grow and now have a payments bank as their partner supporting them in their initiatives.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's added a lot of excitement at Central Payments to have these companies come out of False Fintech with all that momentum and just really focus on their market launch. So kudos to you, kudos to the team like always. And stay tuned. Up next is Evan from Kitty Credit.
Hey everybody, we are here with Evan Leaphart, founder and CEO of Kitty Credit. So glad you're here, my friend.
Super happy to be here.
Yeah.
Welcome to Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
Yeah, straight out of Miami into Sioux Falls. Flights were good.
Flights was good.
Yay. So we're going to start really casual here and just talk a little bit about you. Our audience is, of course, going to want to know a little bit about yourself and what prompted you to start Kitty Credit. So let's start there.
Sure. So Evan Leaphart, founder and CEO of Kitty Credit. Kitty Credit, in short, is a chore tracking app to teach kids about credit, where the premise is the better a kid does their chores, the better their credit score. A little bit about me. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am not a part of the NFC North rivalry. I am a Steelers fan. I stay in my lane there, and I could tell you first, second, and third string players. I moved to Maryland when I was about 7 or 8 years old, so I didn't cross over to being a Ravens fan. Grew up in a city called Columbia, not too far from Baltimore, kind of in between Baltimore and DC. And then I moved to Miami in 2004 and just decided to stay.
That's home.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
did not convert to a Dolphins fan.
No.
Okay, we're going to stay
that's
with
actually
that.
quite easy. So I think one of the things that we love to tell is the founder story. So you're in Miami now. What created your interest in Kiddie Credit, and tell me a little bit about what really drives you from a founder perspective.
Yeah, when I turned 18, I got a credit card right away. Not because I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a credit card. Something came to me and was like, you could apply here and here's a $5,000 credit limit. So in my mind, that's $5,000. So you spend all of that immediately. And then, come to find out you end up paying about $20,000 back or, whatever the final figure is. But it was like, I messed up my credit early, and I did it because of things that like partially was just my own stupidity, but like part of it was like, I had no idea like what this credit score was or anything like that. And I've always been an entrepreneur, right? Like even before at 18 years old, I had lemonade stand, built a computer from scratch so I could burn CDs and sell them to my friends. And it was like, what can, as I tried to get these businesses and get loans, lines of credit, my credit score was always a hindrance. So like, man, like, how do we change this? Like, how do you understand this? We teach math, but we teach nothing necessarily about the world of finance, in particular credit. Like, right. there could be a lot more entrepreneurs if they had access to capital, and credit's like one of the biggest barriers to that. So it's like, just started going down a rabbit hole of thought. I think I had some sales job at the time, and I was like, man, like chores. Like, what if you, like, the better you did your chores, the better your credit scores. That was the thought process, but I knew nothing about building an app in 2010, 2011, whenever the initial thought process came to be. And so it just stayed in my mind, but I owned the domain name for years. I'm always that, like, I come up with an idea, if I
grab the domain.
Yeah, I'm like, one day. So like, now's the day, which is cool. But yeah, that was really, it was just that simple. It was like, let's just try to change this because it just seems incorrect.
So what's the user experience? Talk a little bit about the child's experience at Kiddie Credit. Walk us through sort of how the parents and the child work together to try to help understand the importance of a credit score.
Yeah, so I would say the discovery starts from the parent side initially, right? Like the one thing we've said when we tell people about what we're doing is they say, man, where was this when I was a kid, right? So like the pain point exists with the parent first and then kind of wanting to pass it down, but we need it to actually resonate with the child for that entire loop to work. So the parent comes in, they sign up, they set up their kids, and then they kind of have their chores that they can set up. If they don't have any that they already have, then we kind of have that based off of the data aggregate saying like these are like the most populated chores and these are the most populated rewards. So you set forth the chores, you set forth the rewards, and then once that's done, like the parent side is set up. And then on the kid side, we've designed it so that it can be used on multiple phones or it can be used on one phone, right? Like we can't assume that there's multiple devices in the household, especially with the demographic that we're trying to reach. So the kid comes in and then they see the chores that they have set forth for them, and then they see the rewards that they're able to get. So they can like, oh, okay, I can get this reward, and it could be monetary or non-monetary, depends on the parent. Again, only 40% of parents pay allowance. I was in that 60% that didn't. So, the kids will basically be able to see what they're eligible for. So right now it's very bare bones version of where we intend for it to be. It's why we're in programs like this.
That's right. So when you talked about the demographics, what specifically are the demographics that you're targeting?
So right now it's intended for kids ages 4 to 12. So families with kids ages 4 to 12.
Yeah. Anything else geographically, inner city, outside cities?
We intend for it to be for all families, right? Like, but in terms of where we see this as a tool that can address the wealth gap, right? Like, but starting it before, right? So when we look at that, who that's most affected, like, minority households, the average net worth is, the difference is vast. And we just kind of use that as a shock and awe statistic, but a big component of net worth and just asset building is home ownership. And the biggest barrier to that, 9 times out of 10 is your credit score. So, it's directly intended for the audience, but indirectly just intended for all families to just get a leg up on financial education.
That's what's been so fun about this, is watching people that have passions at different stages of life kind of bring it full circle. And we were excited about Kitty Credit specifically for that, this early on. But you've talked about kids safe, COPA compliance, all the things. So you've already dug into how to do it super responsibly, which is inspiring. So
It's interesting too, like almost every founder experience starts with an experience that they themselves were challenged with that then creates an idea. And I think this is a great example of that. So I follow you on LinkedIn. I know you're really involved in the startup scene in Miami. Talk us through what's that scene like down there, and then how in the world did you hear about False Fintech, and now you're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota?
Yeah, so Miami is, in tech, you know that like Miami just in the past year, you know, through the lens of our mayor and a couple other like deeply big advocates of Miami have really just pushed us forward. So I mean, it's been an exciting time to be there. You know, you rewind about 2-3 years, people would say, oh no, like if you really want to do this business and you're trying to get in the world of tech, you got to get out of Miami.
go to Atlanta, go to...
Yeah, you know, so like for it to kind of have turned the tables a bit, it's cool because now when people are coming to Miami, there's a short list of people say, well, I'm new to Miami, who should we connect to? So kind of being that short list of folks has been incredibly helpful, humbling, and just cool, like all at one time. How did I find out about False Fintech? I won a pitch competition that Discover Bank sponsored called the FinHealth Prize. And they've been amazing. And they're like, I think you should apply to this False Fintech. And I was like, are you sure? Like, you know, this is what we're, and it's like, I'm telling you, you know, you need to apply. And honestly, as I try to do my homework on anything that I'm going to be a part of. And just the level of praise that came for you, Trent, that came for you, Nikkee, from like people I've spoken to. So, you know, Donald and a buddy of mine runs a company, Home Lending Pal. Like they were all just really like, man, my experience in dealing with Nikkee and Trent and Luke and Heather has been amazing. So I kind of made it a no-brainer. And then when I tell people I'll be in South Dakota for a couple weeks, like, why are you going to South Dakota? What? And then the more I started doing research on Sioux Falls, I just realized it's like the credit card processing hub of the country. Like I had no idea. I used to see it on like the top left corner of you know your credit card statements. Yeah, but I didn't. I was like, this makes sense now. Got it. So I'm super happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you here, and we're excited to dig into Kitty Credit and really help you get going.
Thank you. I appreciate this, bro.
Pleasure. Here we go. Thanks, buddy.
Let's do this.
All right, so I'm so excited to be here with the folks from Rhody. Max, Vicky, welcome to Sioux Falls. We're so excited to have you here, have you part of False Fintech. What a wonderful experience here.
Thanks for having us. We're pretty excited as well.
Thank you. Welcome. One of the first things we always like to do in this setting is just kick off with, first of all, what is Rhody? What are you guys working on? And what inspired the idea?
Okay, so Rhody is a prepaid gift card. And the idea behind it was gift card business is a pretty big business, especially here in the US. And we wanted, with our product, we wanted to make it fun, right? So think about the last time when you wait for somebody's birthday, you have no idea what you want to give as a birthday, and usually what do you do? Okay, you end up just getting a gift card, right? And our idea was the problem with the gift card or just giving cash to someone takes out the whole fun or personal feeling to it, right? So what we wanted with our product, we wanted to make it personal, make it fun for a person who's getting it. And so it's a virtual prepaid payment gift card. So,
and there's such a component in it that is similar to other social media bits where there's filters and there's personalization and stuff like that. So Vicky, you've often talked about this area of that expanding on the fun part. Is how did that come to life? What's the AI that's going to...
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of emotions and I'm a big fan of fancy things. So we try to make this giving or presenting in a bit a modern and fancy way. So we added an element of video greetings, video messaging, and added up with filters and fun stories. And we make a script for you the person who gives a present to feel good and feel fancy and do this virtual hugging in a very fancy way.
Absolutely.
We have an element of AI, and it actually comes through our product in different ways. We have AI screening for the card images. We have special card images for gift cards. And we also do a lot of creativity and creative work for video messaging piece.
How did the two of you meet? Walk us through the background of Greedy and how Greedy, is where it is today.
Okay, sure. Well, actually, Greedy is my first fintech startup. I did a few startups before. They were actually in the boring real estate development business, and it was. I just used to build hotels across Europe, and actually was in Russia as well at some point, making a few projects happen there, and. Me and yes, and that's where we actually met, and we have 3 co-founders, and we started the first project of our company was in fintech, but B2B. So basically, our solution is for the banks for personalizing cards, any cards which you issue. You have to run through a screening, and our screening is instant and uses that AI technology which we'll later develop further and to use in our B2C product, which is Greedy. So basically the backbone of it it's just at some point we realized that we wanted to there's great potential for B2C. We wanted to do gift cards, and well, I met Vicky. Vicky used to work for a long time with Visa, and so she has
did
this...
a boring payments business actually,
right, so that's how we...
yeah, but decided to add some humanity to payments. That's why we combined the payment card with the video element.
You have some early response from your users, right? You have a sense. You are not starting from card zero. You've been testing this now. What's been the response in your testing?
Yeah, we tested and we had a very good response from the users. We have early subscribers already, although we are not far away with the app actually. And the people everywhere, they like it. They like the idea and they want to use this product. That's our thought at least. So we will, once we launch and we will have the proof of this concept, I think it's gonna skyrocketing soon. Yeah.
We talked yesterday about some of the goals for Greedy. What's one thing that you hope to get out of False Fintech?
Well, for us, it's very important to have a strategic partner on board who will help us along the way. And I think this is ideal fit because you guys are in the prepaid cards industry. You've been here a while. You know exactly how it works on the technical sides. And actually being in this accelerator will help us to tackle all the other issues as well, like how do we market US. Obviously, US market is the most important for us, it's the biggest one. And I think if we make it right here, we can then expand in Europe and other countries. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm sure we'll have a great partnership here.
Absolutely.
And I'm absolutely amazed with the speed. So hopefully we will get, in 12 weeks, we will get the product. And it's a big deal, actually.
Yep.
So both of you have come from a long way to be part of False Fintech. You've talked about your US launch. Where else do you want to take Greedy?
Outside of the US, well, North American market, obviously Canada, US. Then we think that there is a great potential in Europe. Well, I think now it doesn't really have any borders. So I think if the product works with the clients and they like it, I think we can pretty much launch it anywhere. We will have to have strategic partners in probably each market because it's banking, it's all the regulatory issues. But besides that, I think this harsh pandemic times proved that virtual cards actually work. Absolutely. And a lot of people opt out for virtual cards and actually don't even need plastic anymore. And I think with gift cards, there's the same trend going plasticless, right? So this is
Well, and you guys are not done expanding ideas. We talked a lot about this in just a couple days, which I really appreciate. You're honing in on your MVP. That's the point of launch. But the ideas that will tap onto just a virtual gift card that will present itself with a fun, as Vicky says, the fancy way of delivering it is not the end of Greedy. There's so many more components that you guys are dreaming about, and this is going to expand very rapidly.
For sure. I think the most important thing is to concentrate on, I think, the most important part of the product. And I think once this works out, customers understand exactly what Greedy stands for. And then there's so many things you can add to it and then make it even more fun. Obviously, within the app, you can make it social. You can do a lot of more things. You can obviously do cross-selling. You can add partners to that. So there is a great potential. But I think the big mistake of many startups is that and we talked about it yesterday, is that you just try to tackle so many things. You just try to make it attractive for this and this and that. At the end of the day, then you're not focusing on your core product. And I think that's very important.
But we have some features in the pocket, I would say. So we will enhance it and we'll do it even better.
Well, we're so grateful to be part of the journey with you guys. Thank you for coming all this way, and really, really excited for the next 3 months and beyond.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, up next, Darius Granberry, founder of LeagueSwipe. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Nikkee?
Good. Welcome to Sioux Falls.
Absolutely. Welcome to False Fintech.
Thank you for having me. Trent, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. We're so
Good.
happy to have you here. I'm so glad this worked out.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, I of course need to give one shout out to something we share in common. The Bears.
The Bears. We got a quarterback.
We do.
Justin
Go
Fields. I was so excited
I
they
know.
moved up to get Justin Fields. So.
I have to find my way to Soldier Field this year for a game.
It's a must.
How you feeling in the middle of two Bears fans, Trent?
I know, man.
As
We're
a
cramped.
Vikings guy.
Very cramped.
Cramped.
You like that? You like that?
Yeah. Well, when NFC is NFC North, reigns with the Bears win this year, you can feel even more cramped. So
Yeah, it's better than Green Bay.
that's fair.
Fair.
Darius, it is such a pleasure to have you here. I'd like to kick things off by having you give a quick overview on what LeagueSwipe is.
Absolutely. So, LeagueSwipe is the only one-stop digital wallet that allows you to manage all of your sports betting activity across all service providers within one single and secure application. I'm a big-time fantasy sports player, sports bettor, and me, like many sports fans, have their sports career spread across multiple platforms, from fantasy sports to daily fantasy sports, and now legalized sports betting. You have sports books popping up daily, and people love betting on sports, so much so they spent $4 billion in 2019, and that number jumped to over $20 billion in 2020 despite COVID, despite a sports stoppage. But what they don't love, though, is signing on site after site, entering sensitive information, social security numbers, taking pictures of their driver's license just to get money that they already won. So our LeagueSwipe comes to centralize and aggregate the process. Again, one-stop wallet to allow you to manage all of your payment activity in one secure application.
So we're seeing more of these I think with more states coming on board with legalized sports betting, we're seeing different kind of applications. Of course, Cohort 3, we had a daily fantasy sports app that kind of came through, and they're doing a really good job. Your model is a lot different, and you're solving the commissioner dilemma. Talk about that part of it. I think you hit on it a little bit with the different apps, but go a little farther.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little background on me.
Yeah.
I'm that guy that's in like 10 different leagues, right? And of course, because I'm an accountant, so my background, I'm a CPA, former CFO, so I have a finance and accounting background.
They trust you
They
with the
trust
money.
me. I'm, for better or worse,
Right.
I'm given the job of chasing down my friends for league dues, trying to remember who paid, how much they paid, when they paid, how they paid. So several years ago, I looked up, I was in 10 different leagues, and my family was growing. I was like, you know what, I got to get rid of some of these different leagues, right? But I didn't want to, because each one of the leagues represented just a phase in my life, whether it was people I went to high school with, college with, played basketball with, used to work with. And I was like, this is the only time of year where we really stay in touch. So how can I maintain those relationships and do it more efficiently? And I sort of looked around, and all the offerings out there, lack of a better term, were pretty much trash. So I was like, there's a better way to do this. So I set out to build an application that allows you to collect, store, and transfer funds easily for your season-long fantasy play. And what I discovered there is not only do people want to manage as a commissioner their money during season-long fantasy, but also manage money, like I said, their sports betting careers across platforms. So that's where we endeavored to build the wallet of wallets. So you have your wallet to manage your season-long fantasy play, but you also have that same wallet to manage your daily fantasy and your sports betting activity across platforms.
That's right.
One of the things I like to tell the story, one of the reasons we started False Fintech, of the many reasons, was we saw an opportunity for us as we saw changes in the payments landscape, and we saw the emergence of a lot of different types of payments. False Fintech's really been a bit of an incubator for us to learn more about areas of payments that maybe we didn't have a lot of experience. We're watching the tremendous growth taking place in gaming, legalized betting, fantasy, and I think League Swipe is a great example of us knowing we need to be in this space, and using False Fintech to find new and emerging companies that are like League Swipe that are really tackling this. So I think this is going to be fantastic. I think we're excited about it. I think it's mutually beneficial, this relationship, because we need to be in that space. And I think, in the end, I think League Swipe's going to be a great way to do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It now is the time. I mean, legalized sports betting is accepted in 22 states plus DC. Legislation is on the books in all but 3 states across the country. So legalized sports betting is here. The numbers are in from 2020. Over $240 million were returned to state treasuries as a result of legalized sports betting. So lawmakers are scrambling to push legislation through to allow for it. Like I said, $20 billion was spent on legalized sports betting in 2020. When you have an industry that's growing so fast, you're going to have the infrastructure in place to support that growth. And that's exactly what League Swipe is doing, providing that infrastructure. Because sports fans, we want an immersive experience. We want to be part of the game, but we also want a seamless, frictionless experience. And that's what League Swipe is providing, an opportunity for you to transact seamlessly across verticals within the sports industry. And we're excited about that.
That's right.
League Swipe will be accepted everywhere you sport.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The growth in this industry is fantastic. We're so glad to have you here. This thing's going to happen. All bets are off. See what I did there?
Oh, I like that. I like that.
The prototype's kind of already live in your home state of Chicago.
It is.
Some initial feedback, anything that you're finding as some aha moments as you're refining towards a full-scale market launch?
Oh yeah. So we launched our prototype as a web-based version. What we learned is this is a mobile-first generation, right? So we're building fully native applications for our users. We tried to do a lot. I'm one of those guys that try to do a lot. I tried to put, messaging into the initial platform. I tried to sort of replace ESPN with news, and my user said, no. We don't need you to replace Bleacher Report or ESPN. We don't need you to replace, text messaging on our phone. Move money efficiently across platforms, and that's what we're doing, and that's why our partnership with Central Payments and False Fintech makes so much sense. Allow us to do that very seamlessly and without friction for our users, and we win.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Glad to have you here. This has been great. This will be great.
This will be great.
Yeah. Thanks,
I look
Darius.
forward to it. Thank you.
So Assad, CEO and founder of Truecard, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Great.
Welcome to Sioux Falls, Assad.
Thank you.
We're very excited
It's great
to have
be
you
here.
here.
The weather is awesome. 85 degrees with the wind blowing. Can't beat that in summer.
That's right. And home for you is
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah,
So a little different up here in the Midwest.
it is. Less muggy, nice. I'm enjoying it.
Should come back in January. It's beautiful.
Now you're pushing it. Now you're pushing it. Asad, give the audience just a little breakdown of first your quick elevator pitch on Truecard.
Absolutely, yeah. So with Truecard, we're a digital currency that's backed by gold and silver. We have offices. We're based out of Virginia. We have offices in North Carolina and also in India. We're actually live in India. It's going really well.
Super excited about that. When you applied for False Fintech, first of all, how did you hear about False Fintech?
I was working with Visa to help, to be part of the whole ecosystem. And they actually suggested that we reach out to False Fintech. So it was great too. I had, no knowledge of False Fintech and a program like that existed. So it was great for me to be referred by Visa to False Fintech. And, I think it's a great program, great opportunity for, startups like Truecard to be able to leverage the partnership and the ecosystem, because there's a lot of ins and outs that, a startup and generally, some of the newer founders are not aware of. So being able to have that guidance and expertise to be able to guide us through, what it is from a launch, product alignment, and getting the regulations and compliance in place, because some of those mistakes can be very costly. So you want to avoid as much as possible early on. So that journey is very, very important. So I'm glad to be part of the False Fintech program.
So you mentioned that you're live in India today. In India, the market there, how does it compare and contrast to what you expect in the U.S. when Truecard comes live in the U.S.?
I think in India, just to give you a perspective, you have about 190 million people that are unbanked. So that's 60% of the U.S. population. And that population do not have a digital footprint. They don't have bank accounts. So they have no way of really saving, right, and spending. So at Truecard, we're partnering with companies like EbixCash and Eco, and we also have a banking partner to onboard customers. So the idea is to give them bank accounts and also give them the option to save and grow their money by investing in assets like gold and silver, and also through the banking partnership, allowing them the ability to spend in real time. I think traditionally, the products that are available, whether it's here in the US or in India, are sophisticated. Mutual funds, stocks, like even now crypto, average Joe doesn't understand, but they do understand the intrinsic value of what gold and silver has to offer. So we're trying to, leverage that affinity as a way to launch. So we've launched in India. When we look back at US, which is where we're looking to launch now, we're hoping to be live, Q1 next year, is where the initial use case is the remittance market. So when we look at the remittance corridor between the US and India, that in itself is about $20 billion market.
Right.
So by leveraging tech and the banking partnership and the remittance, we're hoping to tap into that market as a way to grow and expand our user base.
So Asad, on that, talk about the genesis of Truecard and how you're taking a legacy kind of asset and security of gold and silver and digitizing that with what you're calling true coins.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That's a good question. So the name of the company is Truecard, and the digital currency, we're calling it TrueCoin. So they're asset-backed, with the gold and silver. So the way it works is that, you have one TrueCoin that's equal to 1 gram of gold, and one TrueCoin silver is, again, one gram of silver, and they're tied to the London bullion market. So it carries a standard value regardless of where you are in the world, whether you're in India, whether you're in the US. One TrueCoin has that standard value. And the way we are working is that we're working with our wholesalers that actually have physical gold and silver, and what we're doing is we're buying it, and then we're listing it as a trustee. So Truecard will be the trustee of the physical gold and silver, and then we're issuing tokens against those as a way of denominating the gold and silver, so the users have the ability to buy as little as they want. So if you want to buy $1 worth of TrueCoin, you have the ability to do that. And I think that this is where the innovation comes into play, because without that innovation, without that tech advancements, we won't be able to have that, that digital aspect of the gold and silver.
Because there's no question, fractional investing, that is clearly caught on, especially here in the U.S. And so this, to me, feels a little bit similar to that, albeit with gold and silver, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So tell me, Asad, how did you come up with the idea for Truecard? Walk us through your founder experience.
Yeah, so I actually, my co-founder, Kamran, back in 2011, we were at a finance conference at Harvard, and then again, we're mission-centric, so the idea was to create a fair and equitable way of creating wealth for end users. And we toyed with the, different notions, but the idea of having it tying back to gold and silver, makes a lot of sense. One is simplicity, right? Second is the stability. Simplicity, everyone understands the intrinsic value of gold. Second is the stability. We've seen how stable gold has been for centuries, right? It is known as, the safe haven. It's good store value, and we wanted to bring that back, as a way of both allowing individuals to buy, save, and grow. If you look at the devaluation and inflation that we're seeing, whether it's printing money or geopolitics, right? Take for example India. If you had 100 rupees in 1958, now the buying power of it is 0.001.
Correct.
That's 3 decimal places. In the U.S., the impact is less, obviously, because the U.S. dollar is very stable. But you do see the impact. If you had a $1 US in 1970, now it's worth 14 cents. I think so. Over time, you see that impact on from the inflation. When the stock market crashed in March 2020, we saw the stocks declined, and the only asset that performed really well was gold. In fact, it went from 1,400 troy ounce to 2,100 troy ounce. So it has an inverse relation, to the market volatilities. So we're not saying, put all your money, invest in gold,
right,
but it is a viable option. Exactly, It's a hedge, like you said.
Yeah, I love that. The model, you talked about Q1 2022 here in the United States. Between now and then, what are some of your goals? Where do you need to be? What are some of the things you're currently working on?
Yeah, so I think it's really, this is where False Fintech comes into play, because there's a lot to be done from getting the product right, having the partnerships with the bank, and having the partnerships with the card processor, the regulations and the compliance. We want to be able to get all that right, and it's not something you solve in weeks, right? It takes months to get that in place. So you want to make sure that foundation is set in place before we start accelerating. So I think that's why we're giving ourselves some additional time to make sure that alignment and that stability and the compliance is in place before we live. Because it's, again, the last thing we want to do is jeopardize people's money and their investments. That's counter to our mission. So you want to make sure that that's all in place.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense, and really, really smart to kind of go slow to go fast, so to speak. That foundation matters.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you for trusting us to be part of your journey, and really looking forward to a strong partnership.
Yeah, we're very excited about
Truecard.
No,
thank you, and it's the pleasure again. As a founder, it's a big relief to have someone that has experience and expertise, whether it's banking, whether it's payments, compliance. I keep mentioning compliance because I think it's a big hurdle. Especially someone that hasn't been around the block for long. There's a lot to do around it. Yeah. So thank you for accepting Truecard into the program. Excited to be here in Sioux Falls. Looking forward, for the next several weeks of how this whole pans out.
Cool.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
I think.
We are excited to introduce Luke Holman from First Root. Luke, welcome so much to Sioux Falls. We're so glad to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Is this your first visit to Sioux Falls?
In fact, it is, and it's lovely.
We hear that all the time, by the way.
It is absolutely lovely. I went for a little run last night. I got to go along the river and saw the parks and the people playing. So it was really homey and really warm and really nice.
Super. We're glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your founder journey. and tell us a little bit how the concept of First Root came to you.
Yeah, it started more than a decade ago when I was looking at how large organizations manage their annual budgeting cycle, and it's garbage. You're supposed to collaborate and work with your peers until the last 3 months of the year, and then you just kind of fight. So we started doing participatory budgeting techniques in large organizations, and I ended up building up a software platform used by companies that would be name brands that you know: BMW, Salesforce, Cisco, eBay, Transamerica, PayU, Naspers, all these global companies who have these distributed teams managing billions of dollars of portfolio spend. And we saw how well these techniques worked. So then we started doing them with cities, San Jose, Lublin, Poland, Edinburgh, Scotland. And then we started doing that with schools. And I kind of got hooked on what happened when we would give kids money to manage and support them in making a thoughtful decision. We saw them learning really critical concepts of financial literacy, a lot of the basics, just budgeting and how much something costs and what insurance is, because now you have a reason to talk about insurance, and also civic engagement. If we're going to make a choice in the school, is this choice going to benefit everyone in the school, or is it going to benefit a subset of the students? And sometimes that's a conscious choice that we want to benefit a subset of the students. So long story short, I sold the last company, which was great, good outcome for everyone, the investors and the employees. And it was a shared decision. Like, we actually came together as a team, and I'm like, okay, we have this really nice offer to sell. Do we want to sell? And we're like, yeah, it's a good place. We all wanted to sell and do that. I completed my integration tasks, and when you're an entrepreneur, it's what you do.
Yeah, what's the next challenge?
Yeah, what's the next challenge? And,
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You're probably, I would go so far as to say, one of the most unique companies that's in this cohort, if not many cohorts, because it's not about just building a payment product, but talk about the whole vision. That might be a hard thing to describe, but First Root is leveraging legacy work in other countries with participatory budgeting, but to solve so many cyclical challenges in our economy here in the U.S.
Yeah, I think the idea of the payment product, it didn't come to us initially because we were trying to solve the problem of participatory budgeting. So the question that's unasked that we should ask is, like, where does the money come from? Like, if we're going to give money to the kids, where does it come from? Well, it comes from a variety of sources. So principals all have discretionary funds. There's philanthropic foundations who care about either financial literacy or civics or both. There's PTAs and PTOs. There's corporate social responsibility programs. So as we started to actually go to market with our actual platform, the market responded with, this is really great, but how do we manage these disparate sources of funds? Who's on first?
Right.
And they actually came to us and said, could you build a product for us? And that's when we started looking around, how could we do this? And we found various back-end infrastructure providers, and one of them actually referred us to you, and we were really excited to find you. And we missed a cohort, and I thought we'd never hear from you again. And then you reached out to us again and said, hey, the next round is open, would you apply? And we were like, absolutely. And I'm very thankful we did.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. And I'm so glad this worked out. So I think when you hear about participatory budgeting and you think about the involvement of kids, many would immediately think, oh, how could kids be knowledgeable enough to actually budget? How would kids actually know the right place to spend money? And I think one of the things I've learned in the short time that I've gotten to know First Root is that kids are actually, they're very smart when it comes to these things. And this feels very empowering to them. Talk about the way kids, the mindset of kids when this opportunity is in front of them.
Yeah, so, okay, I think we got all three agree, like, there's no intrinsic natural human tendency to budget.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So you have to be taught. But what you talked about, I think, is deeper, and that is, we know what we want as humans, and we also have a sense of what we need. These kids go to their schools. So when you ask them, how would you invest money in their schools, They respond brilliantly. They want to buy 3D printers. They want to buy chemistry lab equipment. They want to buy playground equipment. And who are you going to ask? The teachers? Hey, what do you need in the playground? I don't know. The teachers are going to imagine what they want. The kids know exactly what they want. In one school, Purdue Polytechnic High School in Indianapolis, one of the proposals that was submitted by multiple kids was a covered walkway and stones on exactly where it gets muddy.
Really?
In the winter. They're like, look, we know where it's muddy. We walk a different set of paths than the teachers. We need, pavers here and a covered walkway here. So their environment matters to them. We see a lot of school spirit, murals and other things. We see cafeteria renovations, other kinds of things. And it's very uplifting to see what the kids do with the funds.
Absolutely. It feels very empowering for these kids. There's a sense of, I don't want to say pride, but almost a sense of ownership to say, look, that covered walkway and that stone walkway, I was a part of that, right? They leave a legacy at their
Absolutely.
at their
Well,
school.
I mean, how exciting is it to say Ming and Satish are going to the store with $20 and apples cost $1.49 a pound. How many pounds of apples can they get? I mean, we're rolling our eyes like, you got to be kidding me. As opposed to, hey, you want to get a covered walkway? How much does it cost? Did you include the total cost? I mean, we use an example in our teacher training. Let's say the kids were to come up with basketball nets, which one project did. Well, then all you do is to teach budgeting is, okay, how many basketball nets do you need? Where are you going to buy them? How much does each cost? Did you include shipping? Who's going to install it? Can you install it for free? And as they learn those things, they develop ownership, because it's not going to get done in participatory budgeting unless the kids are going to do it. So that, it's not a flyby idea. If you want it done, great.
And the payments component of this, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it brings a level of transparency to the process as well for everybody that's involved, right? Is that one of the primary drivers?
I'm not going to name the school, but there was a very negative outcome where the students were promised money by the principal, and the principal then said no. And of course, you cannot have that happen and have any possibility of trust within the process. So the really exciting, and in a sense, unintended capability that False Fintech and Central Payments is providing is that transparency. Because we've got some screen prototypes that we've shown to the kids, and we've said, now we can show you, this is the money in the program, this is what it was spent on. You can see every transaction. You can see all of this transparency. And Bono, in one of his TED Talks, has this great quote that transparency is the vaccine for corruption.
Sure.
And we had no idea that we would have this capability working with you. And when we realized what the APIs provided and what we could do with the APIs, we were like, wait a minute, this gives us a complete record, a complete transaction history. And it also gives us a new way to teach. Not every outcome works well. I have a few tools in my garage that are gathering dust, and I have a few tools that are nearly worn out, right? Well, similarly, now the kids can get something with the money, but we can go into implementation, go to the transaction history, go to the payment history, and say, okay, now that you got that, how's it working out? Did you get the right basketball nets?
Right.
Did you measure properly? Did you do all the things? Because there will be mistakes made. And I would rather have those mistakes made by kids in an environment where there's a teacher to help them process what happened and help them have that foundation for learning.
And I think the community effect of this, what works at one school, another school will see, and all of a sudden it gets it's sort
Viral.
of, it gets very viral, and the community aspect is the ideas that will bloom from this, I think could be really fascinating.
Yeah, we have a concept of support the next school. So what's going to be happening in our software is when you create a participatory budgeting cycle, it will automatically have a proposal that allocates money to another school to get it started in its cycle, just to really reinforce this notion of virality.
I love that. Well, thanks for trusting us to help you kind of fulfill some of this journey. And I think you guys are exactly the right fit for us missionally, and obviously the output of what this is going to turn into. So congratulations, welcome aboard. It's going to be a fun ride.
It will be, and thank you so much.
Oh, thanks,
Absolutely.
Luke.
Well, there you have it, guys. That is a quick recap of Cohort 4 coming to you here from Sioux Falls at False Fintech. So thanks for tuning in.
Wow, what great companies. Wow is all I can say. I'm blown away every time I spend time with any of our startups, and I think this cohort is so exciting.
Yeah. The application process, of course, is always hard, but we are constantly reminded that we think we picked right. And so, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Remember, we do weekly vlogs, and so Fintech Brews and News will bring to you a short recap each week of the founders, their journeys, some of their highlights throughout the week as we take them through the next 3 months of curriculum, connections, and of course, real opportunity. So until next time, I'll see you then.
There you have it. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Fintech Brews and News. Keep up with all the content and cool stuff happening at False Fintech and Central Payments by checking out our website, our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss out on our next episode.
I'm Nikkee Rhody.
And I'm Trent Sorbe. See you next time.
Cheers.